on my attention. My countrymen, they love their fiction. Words upon now, it's made with good intentions.
Welcome to 1 of 200, the Media and Politics podcast. We're here with another midweek episode following our current events on the weekend. We're joined by a special guest today. Has been passed my way by Dark Times Academy, so big thank you to them. She's going to be facilitating one of their courses about direct action education for resistance and rebellion. Welcome to the podcast, Brooke Binkowski. How you doing?
Thank you. Oh, I'm about as well as you can expect living in the United States in this year of 2025. I mean, personally, like I was saying offline, personally, I'm okay. Like right now, I'm all right. I'm not, my hair's not falling out, which it was during the first Trump administration because I was so stressed out about everything. And I've gone out of my way to minimize those stressors when I'm not working. And I try to ignore, the Trump administration and what they do as much as possible. I mean, I'm not trying to ignore what they do. I just keep the analogy is, I don't need to watch the murder to know there's going to be a body at the end of it. Right.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
All that to say, I'm okay.
But, I think this is a constant refrain when people either come on the podcast after a little while and we're like, oh, how you doing? Well, that's two different questions, right? Yeah, I'm kind of looking into the face of the horrors and I'm not unwell personally right now. Yeah. Do you want to give our audience just a little rundown about where you come from and what you're doing at the moment?
Sure. Okay. So let me just get this out of the way first. Obviously, I'm American. So, with all that implies right at this moment, shit is really messed up. But everybody knows that. I mean, it's like a new series of headlines every 5 minutes. It's awful, which is why I try to avoid the news on my days off. I'm a journalist in San Diego. That's in Southern California. I used to be a border reporter. I lived and I still live on the U.S.-Mexico border about 12 miles away, and reported on both countries, the U.S. and Mexico, and sort of the whole world coming to the U.S.-Mexico border to seek asylum. That kind of ended when, during the first Trump administration, when I started to have very strange problems with my passport out of nowhere all of a sudden. And after a while, I did not feel comfortable crossing the international border or any international borders. Then I started having strange problems with my driver's license, and now I am unable to renew my now expired passport. So it's very exciting. Yeah, it's every time I think, oh, I should really try to get out of the country, I'm like, but I'm kind of screwed.
Yeah.
So it's rough. I just keep hoping that whatever these ding dongs are doing collapses in on them and just completely destroys them before it gets to anybody I love, before it gets to anybody else I love, because it's already gotten to a lot of people I loved. And I mean, nobody is untouched by this administration. And sorry, I'm kind of going off already. So anyway, I'm a journalist. I was a border journalist, like I said. I left border journalism in 2015 to pursue counter disinformation. I ran a website called Snopes, which was a little myth-busting, fact-checking website that then suddenly became sort of this website of global importance. So I worked there. And then in mid-2018, I got fired very publicly for, I was given 5 different reasons. And then much later, I discovered that Facebook just happened to give Snopes $500,000 right after I got fired. But I'm sure it had nothing to do with my being fired, even though I was very loud about the fact that we were not ever going to take money from Facebook because they were the primary spreaders of disinformation. Anyway, yeah, so that got me fired. Then I took over a website called Truth or Fiction. I took 2 Snopes employees with me. And we just kept on doing debunking until we lost our, all our funding, everything. We lost it all, everybody did in 2023. It was just a bloodbath of counter disinformation. Journalists, academics, everybody lost their funding, and we all knew what was coming. But we were hoping for the best, and the best did not happen. So now I'm a very burned out former counter disinformation journalist. I'm back to, actually, I try to be a former, but how it goes. I can't turn it off. It's really important. Information is important. So I can't stop all the way. But now I've gone back to daily journalism locally. But of course, every day I'm this is a disinformation campaign. We can't run this. It's a disinformation campaign. So I'm a real pain in the ass, which is fine. I'm okay with that. And I'm also, let me get to the whole point of why I'm here, which is what I wanted to talk about to begin with. I'm also a course instructor and a facilitator at Dark Times Academy, which is this community school online that some of my friends and I created because we saw the need for it because everybody was losing their funding. So there's a bunch of us who lost our funding and a lot of people who were never able to get it to begin with because they weren't like seen as the proper types of people for disinformation, just like people who didn't have like who were came at it from academia or people who came at it from like the street level. They were activists. They all like have something to say, so sometimes they teach courses and so on. And then there's just a rolling crowd of really great like guest instructors and so on. And I'm facilitating a particular class that I want to talk about, which is why I am here talking to you right now, because I'm very excited about it. And I feel like a total marketer right now, but I really am. It's a good class. I mean, they're all very good. I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't believe in it. And what we do is basically we try to give people tools to fight disinformation campaigns and propaganda, but not like little bullshit tools. Not like let's build a school and get funding for it in 10 years, but we'll get the funding now. Oh no, there's no school anymore. I've seen this happen a billion times. Or like somebody wants to build a goddamn app. I'm so sick of people talking about building apps to fight disinfo. And then the latest one is let's build an AI tool to fight disinformation. Oh, sure, that's going to work. Yeah,
Yeah,
the
AI
LLM,
has no precepts that are going to cause problems there.
none whatsoever. And on a side note, that's not really a side note because I get burned up every time I think about it. Every time somebody says that to me, I'm like, oh yeah, why don't you dig up the corpse of my career and grind it up and just like force feed me the chunks, because that's what you're doing. In fact, I've said that, and weirdly enough, people don't like it very much when I say that. If I cared what they thought, I wouldn't say that to begin with. Yeah. So now I am doing this Dark Times Academy thing where we are. So I taught some classes on like common disinformation themes, not the narratives, but like how they work. So I did one on, I did a class on fire hosing, and I did one on like despair and distraction and gaslighting and all these things that are done at scale. They're weapons that are used in abusive relationships, like one-on-one relationships, but they're also recognizable as authoritarian attacks at scale. So I did a class on like how to recognize that, because things like gaslighting, I have been dealing with this for a long time, long enough to know that like there's no real particular expertise necessary for identifying gaslighting campaigns. What people need to hear is, yeah, you're being gaslit, dude. Like that's it. And when they actually hear it, it empowers them to be able to do something about it, because now you know that like the person who's telling you that you're wrong is full of shit. And I think that that's a really important thing to be able to do. That's not everything that I was doing, but stuff like that. And we also teach classes on how to fight back, especially if you're a journalist. Like, how do you put that in your reporting? And it's, again, we talk about particular tried and true methods that work, and we try our best not to deal with like the trends, the things that people say that really won't work, but they sound really good at the time, the counter disinformation school. That one just gets on my nerves so badly, because it's like, who's gonna do that goddamn school? Where are you going to put the fucking school, right? Like the online classes we're doing, that's one thing, but they're talking about counter disinformation colleges. They're talking about like creating these. Oh God, I hear this all the time. Oh, they need to teach it in schools. They need to teach counter disinformation in like grades 1 through 5. Okay, well, who's going to create the curriculum? Oh, really? Oh, you think they're going to create it? Okay, well, you see, this guy over here is going to tell you that like they're amoral and a sin against God. So what are you going to do about that guy right there? Like, this is the kind of
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
discourse we're having. It is awful. So, and then what's weird to me is these like Americans can't take it. Like these American institutions that were supposed to be like really rah, they're like standing firm against fascism and all this bullshit. It was bullshit. They're just folding. They're all just like spineless and weak. And like all you need to do is tell these people to fuck off. Like that's what you need to do in every possible way, and never stop telling fascists to fuck off in every way you can. Like face to face is fine, politely is fine, just tell them no. Anyway, that's another rant, and I'm gonna save that. Sorry.
No, good. I think a really good like intro to what you've been doing, kind of some of the issues, pitfalls that are in this space at the moment. And as you noted, like your time doing this kind of stuff stretches all the way back to 2015, 2016, and the first Trump presidency. And it was really interesting to hear that 'cause anyone who's been watching the media and politics and particularly around propaganda or disinformation or whatever you want to call it has noted the way that initially a lot of these big sites like Snopes, like PolitiFact, I think, like some of the like the fact checking coming out of places like the New York Times,
Ah,
right?
what
Uh,
fact check
no,
place?
no, exactly. But they put their brand on it, right? They tapped into this strong brand that had been created by some of those initial sites and then completely co-opted it. Uh,
Completely
and
fucked
it's
it all
just
up.
and so now you've got this. You don't only have the need for counter disinformation. You have the need to counter the counter disinformation organizations that were co-opted into
Yeah.
doing propaganda. One of the really irritating ones for me that you started seeing more and more is these really absurd fact checks of anti-fascist or even like progressive or slightly left-wing of center politicians, like not quite true. Like they do these huge, like it must have been expensive investigations into like a throwaway number, particularly around like uh what number is inflation sitting at? And they'll be like, well, actually, he said 1.47, but over the last 12 months, it's about 1.45, so it's not really true. And you're just like, what are you doing? It was this active destruction and undermining of even the idea of fact checking. And this was happening back at the first Trump presidency, and I guess out of that came this idea of like post-truth, which in my opinion is in itself a disinformation vector. Because
Yes.
just the nihilism of it, right? Like nothing's true anymore. Everything's vibes. Headlines don't matter. Objectivity is he says, she says.
Funnily enough, that was exactly what the Kremlin stated as its goal in as far back as at least 2014. Nothing is true and everything is possible, right? Nothing is true, therefore everything could be true if you want to believe in it hard enough. And you know who believes in bullshit as hard as possible is white supremacists. So of course this benefits those assholes. And yeah, I mean it's disgusting to the way it's gone down and to see all these. Oh, I'm so glad that you said this because that means it's not invisible to other people because it's really felt, in the sort of information zone that is the United States. And I'm sort of so I'm working for a place right now that is has converted from a for-profit media site to a nonprofit. So it's in the process of converting right now. But it's like still kind of corporate, right? Like it's still a little bit like they don't want to go up against particular politicians necessarily because it still makes it look as though they're partisan. And I mean, that's always going to be a concern. But like the people who have co-opted this have made, as you said, they've made the entire concept of fact checking partisan. So you can't even say that somebody is spreading disinformation without appearing to be partisan, which is
We actually have a really funny anecdote from like I think before 2014. I can't remember exactly when it was. We had a prime minister called John Key. Our audience will know who I'm talking about. If you're not an international audience, he was like a merchant banker who kind of swept into power, widely liked by the electorate at the time, and he was being asked about kind of a clean green image of New Zealand, because there'd been all these studies showing like it's getting pretty bad. Your waterways are pretty filthy. He's like, well, I can just find you a scientist that says the opposite.
oh God.
Like this stuff has been happening for a long time, and I think one of the other things that people don't necessarily peg to is that the infrastructure for that shift was created by a lot of establishment media to begin with, right?
God, yes.
It's not just like they're not all they're not all like just hallowed halls of truth telling, and especially Murdoch in the UK, right? Like Boris Johnson, when he was prime minister over there, really ramped it up. But then you go even further back to when Tony Blair was in the UK and George Bush in the US, and what was rolled out for the Iraq War and the war on terror. The ability to do that always existed, often at an incredibly large and destructive scale. What we've seen is an acceleration of that, and having applied to just every little thing, as opposed to just the big lie.
Yeah, although, this time in history, the last few years. Okay, so I've always been my reputation as a journalist has always been that of a reactionary, and I know it, and I frankly don't care because I've been right every time. I've quit jobs over racism. I've reported like people, not people, but like cultures, I've to like management about racism. I'm very like what misogyny and racism are like just two big things I really, 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 really hate. And I mean, I think not only do I think they're like, I'm sick of, first of all, I'm sick of it. I'm sick of misogynists. I'm sick of misogyny. I'm sick of racism. I'm sick of all the stupid fucking jokes they make. Like, I'm so sick of it's always the same fucking jokes. Even like that the anti-trans bigots are making the same fucking tired misogynistic jokes they've always made. Only now it's like a little bit new because now they get to shit on trans people as well, right? Like, oh my God. Anyway, so so I've managed to create this reputation for myself based on the fact that I will always point out racism whenever I see it. And I say this as somebody who is with my usual caveats, which is that I am a white person, and as somebody who is white, I still have blind spots. But by God, when I see it, I will not shut up about it, because not only am I personally sick of it, it's also a massive security flaw. Bigotry of any form, racism and misogyny particularly, are the two in colonized countries that are colonized by Europeans, are the two biggest security failures that anybody will ever encounter in their lifetimes, because what it does is people want to hang on to that sense of power, and they will, even if they do not themselves possess it, some people will feel allied with it, even if they're not white men, white women, people of color who are, who see the power of whiteness, and they rightfully see that that's where the power is, and ally themselves with that kind of power. They're going to resist it, and they're going to buy into anything that will help them hold on to that power over other human beings. And that means believing complete bullshit like QAnon, because that's what QAnon ultimately was. It was an anti-Semitic, misogynistic, racist worldview that was A/B tested, that was essentially people's bigoted beliefs being repeated back to them in a slightly changed form, so that it could be used to undermine the rule of law, government, vaccines, other science, climate science, most of all, the borders in general. But anyway, sorry, I'm digressing because I wanted to actually talk about Iraq. So when I was 23 or 24, I got like this plum career job that I thought was going to be the place I was going to work at forever, which was CNN. I got a job as a radio anchor at CNN radio, and I moved to Atlanta, and it was like I was a baby, I was just a little tiny infant child. There's this great picture of me in my official CNN picture where I'm just like, I'm just like, oh my God, I'm so happy to be there. Like, nothing bad can happen to me now because I'm at CNN. I've got my dream job. It was the only place I'd ever wanted to work my whole life. Anyway, I lasted like 3 years there because it was 2002 that I got hired. So by 2003, we were in Iraq. The US was in Iraq. And I fully buy in. This is my problem as a journalist. I buy into journalism. I believe in it. I completely believe in it. I come from a journalism family. My mom and dad met in a newsroom. That was my grandfather's paper. I was raised in this newsroom. I probably have lead in my blood because of it, but that's okay. Yeah. Like I believe in it, and I believe in its power. I believe in the power of information. I believe in the internet. I believe in, unfortunately, I kind of believe in social media still, but not as much as I used to. But I really, really, really do believe in it. And I think that it's an important aspect of democracy, right? So when I started at CNN, I'm like, I am going to do so much good. And then we went into Iraq, and all of a sudden, like, I'm having to say things that, like, I know for a goddamn fact are not true, but there's political consensus around it. So I have to report the political consensus. That was how the bullshit snuck in. And I lasted probably a year, and I started drinking really heavily. I became extremely depressed. I like, it really affected me badly, and I ended up quitting and going back to, I like ran back to Southern California. I couldn't do it because it ate me up inside to repeat these lies. And again, wasn't necessarily CNN pushing those lies. It was politicians knowing how to work, you know, the networks and knowing where the pressure points were and exactly where they could push to get them to walk back stuff that was the truth.
And a lack of
And
reactivity from those newsrooms or from those organizations, alongside we often call our access journalism, right, as being like
yep.
the way that a lot of this push and pull becomes just push.
Yes. And so I didn't know what to do at that time. I was like by then I was like 25. So I quit. I left and went back and moved back in with my mom to lick my wounds. And ended up getting a job at another place in Los Angeles, and then another place because then they went under new management and turned into the same place. I mean, it just like it's just been like this everywhere I've gone. I'm like, now I can do the kind of journalism I want to do. Now I'm going to change the world. And the closest I really came was with Snopes and Truth or Fiction, doing counter disinfo and debunking. And in the course of that work, I realized that it was the same work as my border work. It was because there were so many lies coming out about the US-Mexico border, about immigrants and about what their motives were and about who was showing up and about what the very border was like. And I realized that all of these lies, these weaponized lies, were coming out of the border region, that San Diego, in fact, being like the most heavily like crossed land border in the world, San Diego, Tijuana. I think that's still the case. It was a couple of years ago, but I believe that's still the case. Was also the place where all the lies originated. So I thought, oh shit. So the lies are coming from this specific border region where I'm from and what I've been reporting on this whole time. So like that means it's about population. That means it's about people. That means it's about land. That means it's about resources. And then I had to go back when I realized which was probably 2017, 2018, and think about Iraq again and think about all those goddamn blatant lies that I knew were getting worked into the media, into the discourse by the media through politicians. And how many of those lies were the same lies? They'd been tested on us at the border. And then I thought, oh my God, what did I participate in? And then it didn't help that I watched that documentary, that Adam Driver documentary, The Century of the Self, which really just messed me up badly. And I was just like, oh God, what have I been participating in? You know, but it has been a very eerie feeling to realize that these same narratives have been passed around. These narratives that we were debunking in a slightly different form have been passed around as just absolute honest truth for as long as I've been alive. And that sort of makes me feel a little bit better about failing to prevent this because how could I? But not that much better because I still failed to prevent it. But yeah, so now I'm in this sort of a position where like I guess I'm trying to warn people in other countries not to let this happen and to look for the signs. And part of those signs are like, you know, it starts with fear mongering about immigrants. I mean, yeah.
Certainly been seeing some of that recently,
Yeah,
here in Aotearoa. Yeah, like immigrants, others, right?
others.
And we don't have a we don't have a land border here, which means that sometimes it needs to take a different form in terms of the people or terms being abused. But as you say, it comes back to the same tropes a lot of the time, right?
Yeah, and I've been watching as well a sort of abuse of in the discourse, and I assume there's other abuses going on as well of indigenous peoples in New Zealand, in Aotearoa, and of course, I mean everywhere really. But I've been watching New Zealand because New Zealand seems to me as though it's like one of the last bastions of the English speaking world that has not yet fallen to disinformation, which I mean, I'm sorry to say yet. I'm hoping it doesn't, but I thought it was impossible for the US to fall. I thought it was too decentralized. And now look.
We are really lucky here in that the we're small, we're isolated in one way, and so it's easy to bundle everything up and control it, I think. But at the same time, everyone knows someone who has been like negatively impacted by the stuff, or like who knows like, hey, actually that's not true. And we also benefit from just having a an indigenous people, Maori, who are really front-footing a lot of the work on this. In terms of the community organizations, Maori media has been just absolutely outstanding and just going from strength to strength. We've got like a growing, let's say growing, but it's been going for decades, but like a strengthening a burgeoning Māori language movement and Māori culture movement that has become so much part of even the colonizer psyche, even for, non-Māori here. It's such a part of their culture now that when someone tries to put that wedge in, it either people react to it very negatively and push back on it, or the cognitive dissonance causes a break. So yeah, just like as you say, like it does feel like we have more opportunities here, alongside as well, like a what I call a growing kind of left wing or progressive independent media ecosystem. Like I would, of which I'd say Dark Times Academy, and the people here working with you, has been a large part that other people can go to for their news, or at least for a reaction to the news that they're seeing in establishment media. I guess our major concern here, in terms of what you're saying regarding how well we're holding back the kind of like the disinformation uptake, is that it's just not resource. And we don't have a lot of the establishment media is, I'm struggling to call it savable at this point. And as I say, we're small. We've got, I guess, three major news organizations. One of them's the public broadcaster, which has been one of the worst on some like key issues. The others are like alternatively anti-climate, anti-Maori, anti-trans, Islamophobic, xenophobic, name it.
Wow.
Often like as what I'd say is Western chauvinist or like heavily pro-US, and then laundering it particularly not just through the newsrooms and the way they kind of weaponize objectivity, which maybe we can get to as like a way that disinformation gets in.
Oh, we can talk about that next, please.
Fantastic. But also the blurring between opinion and commentary and news, right? Which is like a worldwide issue where they have like some of their most popular, or like I'd just say like most heavily forced into their front pages commentators are just rabid. They're just some of the nastiest, most misanthropic, like multi-bigoted people in the country. So yeah, like there are a lot of challenges here, but maybe it doesn't always come through for our audience. I know that this does not always come through, but I am optimistic. I think there's a lot of hope there in terms of what is being built, and the strengths we already have. But yeah, let's talk about that objectivity.
God help me, so am I. I'm optimistic too. I'm always optimistic even when I'm depressed, I'm optimistic to my own detriment. It's awful. I don't wish it on anybody. But yes, please, let's talk about objectivity, because I do really want to discuss that and how objectivity has been weaponized, especially in terms of counter disinfo.
Yeah, so we've like, I guess, if you've been listening to this podcast for a while, you're probably pretty well acquainted with our take on the way that media covers things. You've probably also been introduced to Mick Hall, who's one of kind of the geopolitics commentators here, who lost his job at Radio New Zealand for adding extra context and trying to be what he saw as objective when they had wire copy come through that was clearly propagandistic.
Bob for this?
Oh yeah. Oh, I'll talk about we can talk about that off off record, but I'll go into.
What was the topic? I'm sorry, real quick.
Oh no, it was a range of stuff. Yeah. It was a really poor day, a really sad day and time in New Zealand media, and on social media as well. But the idea was that no, you must repeat what has been said. You just must report what is said. That is what objectivity means. Adding extra context is against news guidelines or journalistic principles because you're introducing bias. But it completely throws out the idea that the information that you're receiving within the world, not like before you've even introduced like a wire agency or another media organization, has a bias. And especially when you're not introducing relevant context, right? And I'm sure you would have seen this a lot during your career.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And still am. I mean, it's still going on. It's worse than ever, but holy shit, that's really ugly. Okay, so first of all, this betrays a fundamental misunderstanding of one of the original tenets of journalism and how journalism is supposed to be. We were never supposed to be objective. What we call objectivity is just what favors the white male like perspective, right? I mean, that's sort of like the mainstream white male Euro American, well, Euro Aotearoan perspective. And I mean, I've seen people say things like when a cop when I've seen reporters say things like when a police officer is injured in the process of like taking down a suspect who doesn't even end up being, like guilty of anything to begin with. I've seen reporters say publicly, I'm praying for the health of this police officer. I hope that God helps him heal. And then they're still thought of as being objective, but that's because it's going, it's going along with this sort of like this authoritarian worldview.
It's
And I've
aligned with
watched
structures of power, right?
Right. So objectivity, what we call objectivity, is a trap. It is, again, a fundamental misunderstanding of one of the most basic tenets of journalism, which is that you're supposed to be fair, not objective, which is, again, bullshit. It is a myth and it is a lie. You cannot be objective about anything. There's no such thing as objectivity. Like, for example, I can't be objective about life as a woman because I live as a woman. You can't be objective about life as a woman because you live as a man. Like there's like, it's, maybe that was a bad one because gender exists on a continuum, and
I think the point, like, that makes the point even stronger. Like,
so yeah, it does, doesn't it? Because there's all these like varied and wonderful perspectives, and they're very different from one another. Two people having the same exact experience externally are going to have very different experiences internally because they've had very different experiences that have built the people they are until that moment. And I think that's wonderful. You have to take that into account, but you don't have to play to it. There is no magical middle between subjective experiences. So objectivity is bullshit, and it has always been bullshit. And it was put out there, but I believe it was I know it was advertisers, and I think it was advertisers for pharmaceutical companies, or maybe I'm just like, that just seems like in my head, it seems like that would be logical. But it was advertisers and marketers who said, we need to do this sort of like objectivity thing because they didn't want stories that were directly, countering their advertisements, right? I mean, there's always going to be that tension, but they really pushed for objectivity so that they wouldn't lose money. And that's really what it came down to. Before back, when everybody was pretending journalism was supposed to be in the public interest, which it was supposed to be fairness. And by fairness, I mean, everyone has biases as they are, as they are defined by people who are talking about objectivity. The whole world, every single person, there's no person in the world without bias. Show me somebody without bias, I'll show you a goddamn infant who has never had any experiences whatsoever. Okay, so you cannot be without bias, but what you can be is somebody who recognizes your biases and writes fairly despite your biases, because you know better, because you're a grown-up who knows how to be fair to people despite having your own worldview and biases. And that was originally how journalism was supposed to be, and that was what reporters were expected to be, until marketers came in and were like, no, we need to be objective because we can't have you reporting out this story and making us look bad.
I'm thinking back to 2016, and the way I remember it being a particular moment in media history, I guess, like in terms of, as you say, there's been issues with this for a long time, but it felt like a line was being crossed. And I think I remember Jay Rosen calling this out pretty early, like in detail as well at the time. But it was the across the board, American and then other countries followed suit. Their media started doing the Trump says. And then because Trump is Trump, he's going to say a lot of different things, right? Like, mostly stuff that's bullshit.
It's bullshit on his face. I mean, it's like he's just making stuff up.
Just making stuff up.
I'm not going to go along with somebody who is just like living in La La Land because somebody else is going to call me biased. Yeah, I am. I'm very biased in favor of reality. And if that makes me a political operative, then
and that should have been the response of every journalist, right? And every media organization.
I'm so mad that it wasn't. Every single day I'm angry and disappointed all over again. Although it is satisfying to have been right all along about a lot of people.
It's on a level, absolutely. But it's still gutting, right? Like we saw what the issue was. We saw that saying Trump says and headlining it and then just filling it in. I think there was like a semi-valiant effort by some newsrooms to be like, and this is not true, and this is why. I remember there was one guy on Twitter who would like fact check line by line every Trump speech for a
Oh
while,
yeah.
but you can't. It's not you can't maintain that. And if the standard way of reporting on it is just to say Trump said this or like Trump colon bullshit, it quickly overtook the entire Western media ecosystem. And particularly, you called out Facebook earlier, because social media organizations were able to just post some of the stuff with just the headlines, just the screenshots, just the article thumbnail, and just replicate,
Oh,
and get it
heads
to as many people as they wanted.
heads should have rolled for that. Like, I mean, I mostly mean figuratively, but like people should be in prison for that shit. I mean, people are in prison, but like the wrong people, like the people who are in charge of this stuff. And I say this as a prison abolitionist. Over the course of the last like of my career, I have come to realize like I just am completely against prison, except for these people.
It's important. It's important to know your biases, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm just like, okay, if we have to live with this shit, like if it's a necessary evil, then at least let's put like these really bad people in them, and then maybe like we can talk about abolishing them while they're in there. Like maybe we can then have that conversation. But like, but this brings me to another. I'm sorry. There's a point I want to make that I think is really important because I was talking about objectivity and bias and partisanship earlier. Debunking, like actual debunking that works, debunking with teeth, the kind of stuff that keeps things out of policy that you don't want in policy is always going to look partisan because it is partisan, because it's been made to be partisan. You're debunking something that a politician is saying or somebody, a political operative of some sort is saying because they are specifically trying to get things into policy. Like, I don't give a shit what people say if they're not trying to get it into policy or they're not trying to affect the lives of other people. People can say whatever they want, I guess. I mean, I don't want to have to hear it, but like they can say whatever they want. But if they're a politician who like trying to affect public opinion using lies, or they're trying to push through some kind of legislation using lies, and we're seeing so much of that, and they're using blatant lies and they're smirking, right? They're talking about students shitting in litter boxes because they're pretending to be cats. A blatant lie, which was being used to build like some imaginary consensus, not against cat people, but against trans people, as it turned out, right? Like that kind of stuff, you're always going to look partisan. And that makes news organizations very queasy. And okay, fine. If it makes you queasy, then fucking outsource it, right? But do something. Like, don't just end it. Don't just end the funding for it. Don't just fire your fact checkers because they added context and nuance. That guy was fact checking stories and he got fired for fact checking. Like that is some bullshit. And yeah, that kind of stuff. It's always going to look political. It's always going to look partisan because it has to be. You are debunking things that are political and partisan, and they're going to drag the facts and the truth into partisanship and beat it to death in the public square any way they can, any chance they get, because then, and by they, I mean the global far right, they benefit from the truth being destroyed, from nobody trusting anybody, least of all each other, because then they can take what they want. And what they're doing right now is fucking resource hoarding because we are living through climate change. And right now they're redrawing and hardening borders and buying up rights to global fresh water supplies and trying to take over entire countries with nuclear power and rendition people who speak out against them to other countries. And, people are getting disappeared all over the place. And oh my God, it is a terrifying time. It is all happening now because of climate change. And right now, as the climate shifts, geopolitics is shifting to meet it, and very bad people are trying to take power. So what I think we should do is not let that happen. And how we don't let that happen is by speaking out every single day about disinformation and counter disinformation, which brings me back to Dark Times Academy. But really, in all seriousness, like that is what has to be done. You have to speak out. You have to, not let these bastards win because they want everything. They want to take it all. They want space, for God's sake. They're trying to take over our skies. Like they're going to break our skies. They're going to break our planet. We cannot let them do this. Oh God, I hate the things I say. I sound so fucking crazy.
I know. I think you're gonna have a good audience. Like I think
I sound unhinged, I should say. But it's all true. Like, this is all true. That's why the borders are getting hardened. That's why there's disinformation. Like, the examples I used to use was things like, imagine you're trying to flee a forest fire, and then some guy stops you on the freeway and says, show me your papers, because that's what they're aiming for. Well, that just happened last week. So here we are. So what are you going to do about it? Sorry,
Yeah.
that's for Americans mostly.
No, but it's true everywhere, right? Like, because you say the global far right is coordinating. And you mentioned a couple of the different narratives that have popped up as ways to attack, for example, trans people. The same stuff, just got the same lies. We're just everywhere and just popping up like independently, and then reported on by pliable media, right? Like, if not just like captured media. As if it was somehow true, despite it having been debunked. Like we're so far past the point of just debunking stuff at this point because it doesn't matter.
Driving me up the fucking wall too. We're having the same conversations again and again and again. We're being led down the garden path. What do we do about disinformation? Do we open disinformation schools? Do we have disinformation classes? Do we have disinformation schools? Do we have and it's like, oh, we need to have disinformation, like newsrooms. And it's like, we already did this. We know what works. We already know. So why aren't we doing it? It's really burning me up. It's like everybody suffered this collective amnesia except for me. And then after a while, the few of us who are like, but actually this has been done. We know what to do. Don't do this. Like, we start to feel like we're the ones who are nuts. And that is really horrible.
Well, that's part of the gaslighting, right? And it's structural and it's institutional, because any number of individuals can understand the strategy that's being employed and the techniques, but the organizations which I'd say people still look to, I'm thinking establishment media, political institutions, civic institutions, even a number of NGOs, they have just not chosen to act, sometimes at all, but mostly just like to the extent that they need to, given the project aligned against them.
I don't understand it. It's as though they all think that somebody's going to come and save us. Nobody's coming to save us. Like, I'd love that too. Believe me, I'm an inherently lazy person. I don't want to be doing any of this shit. Sitting around working on some textbook that's this thick that nobody ever reads. I want to be able to get like some kind of bullshit grant and just sit there in my house and be a self-satisfied, smug academic. Instead, I have to do this. I'm very angry about that. Like, there's not even goddamn universities left, practically.
Yeah, right. Like, this is the other thing. Like, that's the kind of institution I was talking about, right? Like, seeing what's happening to students on campuses in the US. We've had like, I wouldn't say we have had the same stuff happening here, but there are certainly, warning signs that the academy administration is significantly unaligned with its student base and even its staff.
And then they say it's because colleges are inherently left-wing and,
Blah, blah, blah. No, exactly. That's the lie, right?
No, please don't let this happen. From everything I've seen of your country, it is a very beautiful country with a lot of really cool people who I'd love to meet. And I really would like it if, we could like maybe keep it going for a while.
What are the warning signs? Like, other than I'm not talking just about the ones all the way back in 2016, right? Like, I think we're past that point. But
sure.
where do you see the tipping points into that brutal accelerationism, which I genuinely I think we are starting to see here as well. And I guess I'll go into like our latest brush with it after a few words from you.
Well, yeah, I mean, this AI thing has changed the game considerably and sped it all up. Like, what it has been doing and what I believe it was created to do, which may or may not be true, but I mean, it doesn't matter because this is what it's been deployed for, has been tainting our information wholesale and making us unable to know whether or not something has been AI generated. Like, I mean, I'm getting emails from people excuse me, I'm getting emails from people that are AI generated. I don't know if the people themselves like even had a say in what they wrote to me. Like, what the fuck are they doing? Google, I mean, all these search tools that all depended on Google to begin with are just absolutely unusable. So that's one of the later early signs. I mean, that's what they've been trying to do all along, right? They're taking our books. They're tainting publishing. They're tainting, search engines and like, or like Reddit. I didn't realize how much of Google depended on Reddit answers until, well, I guess, we all witnessed the same thing. It was cataclysmic. It was awful. And I mean, now like all this information, this is a generation's worth of knowledge that's been freely shared. And these assholes just took control of all this information. I mean, I participated in sharing information. Like it was wonderful doing that on the
I mean, it's
internet.
fascist book burning, right? Like it is destroying history and information. It's destroying shared knowledge. Like this is the point. This is what fascist projects do.
Yes, and now it's being undertaken globally. So I would say that's a very big sign. Don't let that happen. Like, obviously, you can't really do anything about the internet. It doesn't seem like any individual can, but hold on to your books, protect your books. Don't let them be banned or burned. If you, I mean, this is, I'm volunteering at the library now because like that's the best way I could think of. I was like desperate to just do something, and I'm like, okay, I can protect the books. That's something I know how to do. That's something I can do. And I found when I got there that like there's about probably half of my cohort. I volunteer at two libraries. Between the two of them are journalists or former journalists. It's really funny. They're like, "Yeah, we're here to protect the information." It's like, oh,
Wow. And that's
it's,
great. That's a fantastic good news story.
yeah. Well, kind of. Except like it's like Canticle for Leibowitz time. We're trying to like we're at the point like if hordes of book burners come to the library doors, we can at least like grab armfuls and take them out. But I mean, like that's one of the signs, right? So if you start seeing like narratives about books that need to be banned, I just saw that's happening in Canada, and that's a pretty advanced sign. If you're starting to get that discourse in Aotearoa, I would say beware and push back as hard as you can, like everybody. The thing that I think is a particular tell is when these disinformation narratives start to get into policy. I mean, that's not just a tell, that's the goal. But once they start getting into policy, it's nearly impossible to get them back out, without a lot of pain that we're currently feeling here. I mean, our whole government is now built on conspiracy theories. It's fucking awful. Like everything is a white supremacist conspiracy theory. So, watch out for that. Like if you hear politicians spouting known conspiracist lines and narratives, they use specific signals to identify themselves and sort of use mass media to communicate with one another.
Well, to do the objectivity thing, right? Like where it's just like ex-politician says, and then it's out there, and it can be coded, right?
Yes, it's I call it signaling. I mean, it's widely called signaling, but like I believe there's other terms that there's debate about, like in like the academics debate about it, and I just like call it my own thing because I kind of was there before they were. A lot of them were. Ooh, that sounded well, anyway, it doesn't matter. So yes, so it's signaling or steganography. I believe social steganography is another term for it, where they say a phrase, like a key phrase that has a lot of like coded meaning in it. There's a lot of things that like white supremacists use that were deployed a lot during the first Trump administration. I got into so many arguments about this one. This was a known white supremacist hand sign. I don't even.
Brooke is doing the OK
Oh,
symbol that
sorry.
the white supremacists were using frequently under Trump in the first administration.
It is a circle made with the thumb and forefinger and the three fingers up. So it is also called the OK sign. It's also called the circle game. And it is also a coded sign for white power. Because it has those other much more innocuous meanings buried in there, they were able to do this in media and signal to one another. And then the ensuing debate, of course, spread this more. You'll see stuff like that with the visual signs like that. You'll see like sometimes white supremacists wear specific colors like red and black, although I'm not sure. I don't think they do that so much anymore.
We
But they
don't do
use
it here either because those are the Tino Rangatira colors.
oh my God. Okay, yeah, no, forget that. But yeah, or like white shoelaces with black shoes. But this is all like American stuff. I think they like butchered it, like they bastardized it and butchered it from British movements in the 70s.
Mhm.
Anyway, but the big thing that I saw during the first Trump administration that nearly drove me absolutely batshit crazy because nobody would believe me was the coded use of numbers. White supremacists and their ilk love numbers. So
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
14.
We just saw this
Oh,
like at the Palantir
of course it was
presentation.
Palantir.
Yeah, yeah. So they just put 88 up on screen.
Jesus fuck. Oh my God.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's just like, yeah, there are very few numbers like that. But as you say, like, yeah, just I wouldn't even say it's coded anymore.
Yeah, it's really not. I mean, this is kind of we're kind of in the advanced. I think that a lot of I think a lot of our global far right feels very empowered because of. I think they feel empowered because I mean, we've got the global far right is in power in multiple countries at the
Hmm.
moment, but none less so than the United States. And Americans still have not like a lot of Americans are still in a lot of denial about it,
Yeah.
which is deeply depressing. It's pretty horrifying. It's really bad. It's really bad in my head. Oh my God. Because I'm like every day I'm like, I read the headlines, and then I see people just being normal. And then I try
Hmm.
to talk to them about it. And they're like, that's not happening. Like I've been dealing with outright denial and I don't know what to do about denial. Like that's the final boss of disinformation. And that's not something I can do anything about personally. I don't think there is anything yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those ones where it's like for some people it has to be at crunch time, right? I think like
Yeah.
what I guess we would almost call occupation of places like DC with armed operatives being brought in, same in California, right? When people see that happening in their streets, that makes it easier to believe. But I think there's still a large swathes of America that have either not come in contact with that more visceral experience, or have been so prepped for it by the creeping police state, the militarization of the police over the last, what, 200 years in the US, that it almost feels like a normal progression.
Yeah, that's the scariest part of all, that it feels like a normal progression. And, I used to, I mean, it wasn't just me, like a lot of us, a lot of people I knew used to warn about this exact thing, especially when we saw it was happening, especially when we saw it was happening at the border. The border is heavily militarized. It's a very scary place. I've been pulled into secondary inspection multiple times, especially after I started reporting critically about border policy, which like was, oh my God. It was like I don't ever want to experience that again. I mean, I will if I have to, but like I don't want to. The state, the force of the state being pulled somewhere by hostile people who don't really much care if you're alive or not, to a place where there's no cameras in a legal gray area where you don't have anybody protecting you because you've been reporting on it for like 10 years is a very frightening experience. And I wish that on nobody. Well, no, that's not true. I wish it on a few people, but there's most people I don't wish it on. But yeah, it's a very frightening. Like nothing happened. I mean, nothing like overt happened. I got screamed at and properly scared, and I actually eventually, because it kept happening, I stopped crossing because like they started going through my things, and I often had paperwork that was sensitive, that like it was like people's birth certificates and things like
Hmm.
that. And things that would get people deported for no reason at all, except that they had that information. Like I wasn't doing anything illegal or anything even untoward. I was just trying to help out friends who were like some people, like the laws changed and they couldn't cross the border to get their own birth certificates, and then those entities wouldn't mail anything across an international border, so somebody else had to go get this paperwork for them. But like if they found it, like if border guards found it, I mean, there would be a good chance that they would just show up at this person's door and be like, hey, so stuff like that. I started worrying about that, and it just became, I was getting surveilled. Like there was like somebody broke into my car and left the hood up. I couldn't go out drinking without somebody like, coming in and taking photos and videos of
Yeah,
me. And
yeah.
it became easier to stay domestic just for a while, and then my passport expired. Now I can't renew it. So it's like it's been a whole thing. It's like this weaponized borders.
Yeah.
The whole, yeah. Anyway, sorry, I got on this whole tangent because I wanted to talk about the weaponization of borders and how this is just sort of like something that has been predicted with the onset of climate change, and how much people are in denial in the United States about even that. And that is very frustrating too. There's still not consensus about climate change officially. Well,
Well, and
especially,
that's one of the first things they targeted, right? That was one of the first big targets of coordinated disinformation campaigns, and it's still going. Like that's something we've seen a rapid uptake of in New Zealand. We had at least one major paper kind of do this whole mea culpa about how they hadn't done well enough on climate reporting, and that they were going to like not report on. They weren't going to use the like some experts say otherwise kind of framing anymore. But like as far as I know, that's gone out the media, out the window for most media here now. Like they'll have commentators who do stuff, and then they'll do the politician thing, right? They have like we've got a couple of politicians at the moment who are like, we need to destroy all the conservation land, and we need to, doing the drill, baby drill kind of stuff. It's just like, oh, this politician says that it won't have an impact on the environment. What are you talking about? Like, you had to do a mea culpa like 5 years ago. Like,
Oh,
why are
that's
you
bad.
doing this now? Yeah.
I've been really worried about that. But yeah, my advice to everybody who's listening is push back against this now as hard as you can because it's only going to get worse. That's where we were about 2002. And the climate is first to be attacked because none of this could happen without the weaponization of
Yeah.
climate change.
The thing is here is it's happening from the top, right? So it is, and it allows media to do soft amplification just by doing the we're so objective kind of thing, as opposed to, and this is what I believe should be happening if people purport to be journalists, is you should hound these people out of office. Like if they're consistently lying about the impacts of climate change, or if that climate change exists at all, why is it not just always like, why are you lying to the public? Why are you lying to the public? Like, don't let them say anything else. Get them on the record, admitting they're lying, or just getting angry at you because you're calling them out for lying. It's really easy to do.
And don't let them say, well, everybody lies. No, everybody doesn't lie.
Yeah, really frustrating stuff.
I think that if you're a public official who lies, I absolutely think that people should be able to call you a goddamn liar, all day long, every single day of the week.
What can people do? We should probably we are heading to time.
I'm sorry, I rambled. I'm
No,
just
no,
so
good. It's fun.
I'm really happy to be asked about this because very few people ask me about it anymore in the United States. It's like become a taboo subject
Yeah.
almost. It's so weird. Like if I say I'm encountered disinformation, sometimes to certain people, there's like this little polite pause. Like I just said something like really rude. It's so weird. And I think it's because it's become so politicized. But what we can do, what I think what people need to do is build resilience on our own. And that means banding together. I think that's a phrase that's been co-opted as well, building resilience. But we have to, until I think of a better one, what we have to do is engage in acts of mutual aid. We have to, you know, come together. We have to overcome our own prejudices as best as we can. And I'm not saying we all have to be angels. It's like look at your prejudices and recognize them for what they are and just try to fucking do better. Like, I mean, that's it. Like that's all anybody asks of you is just try to
Yeah.
do better.
We always
And
say solidarity first, and then you
yeah,
can figure the rest of it out.
yes, that's a wonderful phrase. Yes, solidarity first, always. And look past your own prejudices if you can, because those are also security weak spots, right? Those are things that will make you vulnerable to disinformation campaigns. I've seen a lot of people, a lot of white males, and I'm singling them out for a reason. I'm sorry, guys. I have nothing against you personally. It's just
As a
it's
white guy, I'm like, go for it, get in.
it's a
I'll
byproduct
give
of
I'll give you the white guy card.
Thank you, thank you. It's a byproduct of colonization, and that's all because it was done intentionally to favor white men, right? So, because of that, these disinformation campaigns that follow along those colonizing lines appeal to white males first and foremost, and a lot of white guys. At least in the United States, and I'm pretty sure in other countries too. I hate criticizing other countries, so like that's there's a lot of unexamined misogyny, and that is an extremely easy place for the disinformation to get in. And a lot of women are misogynistic as well. I mean, I say that as a woman who is still working on her own internalized misogyny, and that is also where disinformation gets in. Like, if you believe one lie about other humans, you're going to believe any number of lies. And if you are able to be fooled into thinking one group is less than another group of human beings, then it's just a matter of time before you're able to be fooled into thinking another group and another group and another group is less than. And then that's how you believe disinformation, because disinfo only exists to take rights away from other human beings. At the end of the day, I mean, sometimes it's still like a mass power, but like that power comes from taking rights away from human beings. So at the end of the day, it's all one and the same. So what you can do now is build solidarity. Build solidarity. That is the best first thing you can do. Protect what you can, protect the information that you can, and be ready to fight like any way possible, fight, in legal ways by like lawsuits if you can. I don't really know. I don't know how litigious a country Aotearoa is actually.
Nowhere near as much as the US.
Oh, nobody is. This country is really like due a lot of reform if we ever make it out of this. Like there's a lot that brought us here. Like this was very inevitable. But I mean, it's happening in a lot of other countries too that we didn't think it was inevitable in. So it's just our luck that it ends up being done in the most tacky way possible, in the United States. But yeah, that's the best advice I can give. I'm still working on it. I'm trying to build solidarity with people. It's hard, in some ways to do so because I didn't realize like the pandemic has really left a mark on me. Like I really stopped trusting people in 2020, 2021. And it has not come back. Like nothing since then has made it come back. But like I said, I volunteer at library. That's really helped because we already have a common interest, right? So like if you can find existing social structures, it's a lot easier. And I've heard this and seen it played out myself time and time again. If you can find existing social structures like volunteer groups or clubs or social clubs or even, I guess, cliques of people who do good things together, I guess, join them. It's better to do that than to start your own a lot of times because it takes so much energy to start things. And then the corollary to that is sometimes it's really good to go do things on your own if you feel like you just can't fit in because like all the coolest stuff I've done has been like because I've just said fuck you guys, I'm out and done my own thing. So don't be afraid to do that either. I know I just contradicted myself. I'm very sorry. I'm just trying to like make sure everybody knows that there's room for them. But really, it is much easier to join these existing social structures because then you already have that built-in solidarity and you don't have to work to build as much trust. It's already like that work's already kind of been done to a certain extent. And if you are able to speak up about like toxic people or corrupt people within organizations, please do so because they are the ones who generally bring in the rot. And like people who are generally corrupt are also big spreaders of disinformation because they're opportunists. So, get rid of them if you can. Like that's the best advice I can give, I think. And stay as healthy as you can because, this is fucking exhausting. It's so exhausting. And like the first Trump administration, my hair started to fall out. It was awful because I wasn't taking my vitamins. So take your vitamins and drink lots of water. And that is my advice. and
Fantastic.
and I'm so sorry. I came here to talk also about Dark Times Academy.
Yes,
So
where can people find that stuff as well?
So we are currently offering classes on like forming a new vision for the world, how to do it, what it might look like, just kind of what a future might be beyond fascism and authoritarianism. We also have a climate change and disinformation class and how to fight it. And the one that I am facilitating or co-facilitating with Carl Folk is direct action. And hang on, I'm pulling up the description because I really want to tell you about it like properly. But it's Education for Resistance and Rebellion is the name of the class. So what we're talking about, we're bringing on guest lecturers for each class, and this is for all three courses. And each of them has done something to fight against fascism one way or another, whether it's been reporting on a fascist like power grab or an authoritarian power grab. Like one of my friends was a reporter who exposed the activities of Larouchians on college campuses, a far right group on college campuses in the 60s. And so he's going to talk about that and how it worked. And he did that with Chip Burlett, who went on to become a prominent researcher of the far right, who is like one of my absolute heroes and mentors as well. So love Chip. So we're going to have him on. We're also going to have Spencer Sunshine on in a different class to discuss. So he co-wrote a pamphlet called 40 Ways to Fight Fascism, but he's also another researcher of the far right. So he's going to talk about what he's learned, what works and what doesn't. This pamphlet, 40 Ways to Fight Fascism, is fantastic. It is free. You can download it. You can just look up the name of it. It's just got all these like legal ways to fight fascism. For example, like if your bar turns into a Nazi bar, You like, how do you get that Nazi out of your bar to make it not a Nazi bar? You pressure the bartender, you make calls, you call management, you make general pesto out of yourself until that Nazi is gone for good, right? Stuff like that. And it's practical. There's no guarantee of magical, like anything, but it does make you feel, and like rightfully so, that like, you can do something. And so I highly recommend it. So he's going to be doing a class about, not about that exactly per se, but he's going to be talking about what he's generally done to fight fascism and what has worked and what doesn't. He's also got an updated thing that he's going to be, an updated pamphlet version of that one that he's going to be releasing soon. I think he has not released it yet. And he's going to be talking about that. So I'm super excited about that. Sorry, I should have been talking about this all along. And then, for like, I was going to also bring up the climate class because, I am very happy that climate journalist Amy Westervelt will be joining us. She's just one of the people. Like, we also have these like all these other great prominent people, but these are the people I'm most impressed by. But she's like this really excellent journalist. She's been doing it for a very long time, and she's one of the first people that I know of who like saw the connection between climate change and disinformation as like a threat multiplier. And so I believe she's going to be talking about that. So it's just going to be like these excellent names. We're also going to have we're going to have some authors who are just excellent, and we're going to have some okay, you know what? You're going to have to see the course list yourself. It's on
I'll
the
drop
website.
a link. I'll drop a link into the summary to
Yes.
Dark Times Academy, and you can go and peruse it at
register.
your leisure.
Register for classes, please, because we love students and we love teaching and we love talking to people. And the more people we have, the more people we can talk to and the more opinions we can hear. And I don't know, I just really like hearing a diversity of opinions and voices. So come to our classes.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
I'll drop a link to 40 Ways to Fight Fascism there as well, for anyone wanting to have a look at that. Thank you so much for joining us, Brooke.
Thank you. And the Public Research Academy, or crud, I can't remember what it's called. Chip Roulette's site, PRA. Well, I'll drop it after I say my goodbyes.
Send me a
Thank
link.
you so much.
No trouble at all. Love to have guests on. Thank you again for joining us. Thank you for listening to our audience. If you've enjoyed that, like, share, subscribe. Hit some of those links. Go and find out about how to fight fascists. Join up, register for Dark Times Academy, and get involved. Build solidarity. Get some more information about what you can be doing as we're seeing some of these early and not so early warning signs in these spaces. That's been another episode of 1 of 200. We'll catch you next time.
If artificers are then I'm living a pointless life, but learning all your lessons. Fucking politics, there's no distinction. The road's upon now. It's paid with good intentions, and I'll admit that I'm at a loss for what to say when they quote this as a cost we ought to stay. 'Cause I live amongst the people every day.